A paradigm shift in perception from analog to digital. Formation of intelligence by quantized information. Introduction. The life of modern people relies on information. The information is intermittently extracted by humans and does not change over time. On the other hand, the reality changes over time. The information is an aspect of the reality that humans have paid attention to and intermittently collected, so it is not external real world itself. Therefore, it is necessary to be careful when receiving information that the information contains the intention of the provider. This video proposes that the analog thinking, which understands state changes as a causal law, should be checked by digital thinking that considers the state changes themselves. Basic intelligence is formed in infancy. Development of the association cortex necessary for bipedalism. Four-legged animal is possible to walk soon after the birth. However, it takes about 1 year after the birth for human to walk upright on 2 legs. In the bipedalism, it is necessary to control each angle of the ankle, knee, hip, neck and joints together with check the various changes in posture at each moment. Bipedalism needs development of the associative cortex that interconnects the sensory and motor areas of the cerebrum. Human beings have developed the association cortex in the cerebrum by bipedalism, and it allowed to develop of its intelligence. Development of nervous system of newborns. Newborns learn how to act by trial and error. Axons of adult nerve cell is covered by a membrane called the myelin sheath, but the axon of nerve cell at birth does not have the myelin sheath. Nerve fibers with myelin sheath can transmit information at a much faster rate than nerve fibers without myelin. The myelin gradually will cover the nerve cell in association area around the motor and sensory areas from the period of the fetus to the late stage of infancy. Areas of the neural circuitry for language use. At the time of speaking, human needs to pull up its diaphragm, breathe out of its lungs and send it to its vocal tract, and let its vocal cords shake. To change the voice, human needs to control the vocal cords and sound pathways. The baby's larynx is higher than the adult's larynx, and the trachea and esophagus are separated, allowing the baby to continue to drink breast milk while breathing through the nose. It takes about 1 year of experience to be able to speak the first language. The baby will be able to engage in activities that use words with learning of vocalization. In adults, language use is handled by Broca's area in the motor linguistic cortex and Wernicke's center in the sensory association cortex. World of thought and that of artificial intelligence. The life is active owing to chains of reactions. The activities rely on information extracted from the real world, as shown in Fig. 2. When we feel that our thoughts have fallen into a labyrinth, it makes sense to review the structure of intelligence. How was artificial intelligence realized? Newell and Simon proposed treating human problem-solving behavior as a set of rules in the form of if-then rule. This concept became the foundation for the development of artificial intelligence technology. Information processing equipment was also realized by a transistor circuit that can determine the state of the output in the state of the input. In large-scale integrated circuits, intelligence is realized by the state transition of if A equals B, then X equals Z. The general term for these circuits is called finite state machine. An action of a neuron. An action changes the digital state. Every cell of the organism works in harmony with the state of the surrounding cells. Therefore, a change in the state of a cell is accompanied by the change in the state of the surrounding cells. The smallest form of the reaction is expressed as an impulse. It rises, peaks, and falls. As shown in Fig. 3, a digital state transition is caused by an impulsive. That is expressed by a relationship of differential if and only if integral. How intelligence realized. In order for multicellular organisms to act quickly, the cell that transmits information became nerve cells, and neural circuits were formed. Those neural circuits are responsible for intelligence. Intelligent behaviors are controlled by the impulsive activity of nerve cells. The waveform or time series of the impulses has no meaning. The connection that transmits stimuli has the meaning. In a computer network, the sender specifies the address of the recipient. There, we use an address decoder to turn on the input of the corresponding receiver. Thinking is the activity of the associative cortex. Human thinks via language. The intelligence of human has developed remarkably due to information processing mediated by words in the associative area of the neocortex of the cerebrum. Association cortex covers each areas. The neocortex includes sensory and motor areas that communicate directly with the outside world. The associative cortex interacts among sensory area and motor areas. The associative cortex of human accounts for about 2/3 of the entire neocortex. However, the associative area does not direct contact with the outer world. What is consciousness? Consciousness is a part of control system. Even if we think about what is consciousness, we will not be able to get a satisfactory answer, because the consciousness cannot think objectively from the viewpoint of thinking. The consciousness is information processing for the precondition of his behavior control. Conventional models of consciousness. The control consists of controller and what is to be controlled. There are multiple areas of activity in the cerebrum that control behavior as shown in Fig. 5. Sometimes, consciousness encounters the problem of the difference between the ideal and the reality. Daniel Dennett proposed multiple drafts model for the consciousness in his book, Consciousness Explained, in Chapter 5. The mechanism of freedom of the spirit. A neuron responds to the impulses those input at the same time. Neurons combine several inputs into one output. So, pattern recognition is carried out by a neuron easily. There is a freedom to choose the output of state transitions. The mental activity is carried out by the brain that remembers similar changes as causal relationships, senses changes in the surrounding situation, and decides how to act. Sometimes there are multiple outputs in the same situation. The freedom on the choice of output brought the freedom of the spirit. The brain memorized the intelligence that determines behavior in the form of causal laws, so we tend to think analog worldview. Visual information processing. Vision is processed digitally by the law of causality. In a movie, the image of the frame by frame appears to be moving continuously. Those comprehension of the vision is made by the law of the causality. Collecting visual information by retina. In the retina, there are red, blue and green cones work in bright conditions. The rod cells perceive only brightness in dark condition. How cerebrum recognizes vision. Visual signals those enter from the retina are sent to the temporary visual cortex at the back of the head, where shape, color, and position recognition, location, movement, etc. are analyzed concurrently. By integrating the results of these analyses in your brain, you will be able to understand what colors and shapes are where, and how they change. Circuit configuration of nerve cells. Short-term memory with loop neural circuits. Since neurons are retarding elements, neurons that emit excitatory impulses can be connected to create a closed loop to continue the activities. These activities are erased by addition of inhibiting impulse. This circuit of short-term memory corresponds to RAM in a computer. Hierarchical structure of neural networks. Nerve cells are active in connection with the axon of the output, so the associated nerve cells form the region. Overlapping representative of neuron circuits will be formed hierarchical structures. Circuits in the cerebellum that instruct muscles to perform habitual movements. Muscle cells are controlled by the cerebellum. There are many types of actions that move a single muscle cell. In the cerebellum, there are Purkinje cells, and they generate repressive impulses only when the stimulus impulse does not come. When a suppressive impulse is emitted into continuing excitatory impulses when the excitatory control signal does not come, OR logic is achieved. This mechanism is a logic of De Morgan's theorem. The circuit system for linguistic activities. Neural circuits those enable the use of language. Humans have added a neural circuit that expresses itself in words to the neural circuit of the association cortex, which senses changes in the situation and commands a response. The neural network of its intelligence includes the rules for language use. The basic structure of language comes from neurocircuits of intelligence. Noam Chomsky proposed a universal grammar, based on a system of principles common to all languages. The deep structure of language is formed in the neural networks responsible for its intelligence. Therefore, configuration of linguistic expression and the composition of the neural networks have in common. On the other hand, the process of generation of words, such as the voice display, is difficult to know by the arbitrariness of the human population. Understanding of human intelligence through programming of robot. Basic intelligence, which is formed in infancy, is used unconsciously in adults. However, in order to create a robot program, all movements must be described. Each movement of the robot describes the time of operation and the state before and after. In artificial intelligence, programs that are used repeatedly are stored as subroutines and recalled. If we consider the mechanism of such an artificial brain, we can understand the mechanism of the cerebrum as a network of subroutines. Conclusion. In everyday life, walking and thinking are not conscious of control. Those basic intelligence is formed by experiences in infancy. The life makes continuous chain reactions as an organization of chain reactions. In the same way, computers chain reactions. In order to obtain deepen the understanding issues such as what is consciousness and freedom of the mind, the digital technology that realized artificial intelligence was helpful. In this video, the author proposed paradigm shift from analog to digital in perception, i.e. the formation of intelligence should be considered through the quantized information rather than grasping facts through causal law with conventional mainstream of analog thinking. Thank you for your attention.